consumers will then vote, right, with who they then bet with, based on
if it works, it'll destroy the industry, which is what I'm excited about.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.
What is up, everybody? I am Jason Trost, the host of the Business of Betting podcast. Today, I'm joined with Stuart Simms, who's the CEO of Fairplay Sports Media. Did I get that right?
You did. Yeah, great job.
We're here recording at the G2E Summit in Las Vegas. Thanks for joining us, Stuart.
No worries. It's great to be here.
Fairplay Sports Media, that's kind of a mouthful.
It is.
You guys run OddsChecker. Is that the main business you have, or do you have other businesses?
We've got other businesses as well, but we run a PE-backed business, OddsChecker, that I took over about 2 years ago, that we rebranded to Fairplay earlier this year.
Okay.
And the reasoning is really simple. OddsChecker was around for 25 years and built amazing technology, data, and platforms. And we didn't feel like if we called it OddsChecker Global Media, which was our kind of prior name, that really did justice to that tech and platform, nor did it give justice to the reach and the kind of ability we had to influence millions of consumers globally. So
when I hear the name Fairplay, I used to be a soccer/football referee, and the fair play was the name of the game of, like, let's not foul each other and be gentlemanly with each other. That's what I think of, like, just be nice. Are you nice guys that don't foul? Is that where the name comes from?
Sort of. Yeah, we talk about leveling the playing field. We talk about putting machines and data in the hands of consumers to make the industry and the market a lot fairer than it has been. I think OddsCheck has always been, that's been a core strength of it, is to provide a lot of market analysis and data. And we've taken that to the next level in developing bet tech or betting technology to be able to support that ambition further and broader.
Great. You said before we started chatting that you're on a bit of a health journey,
yeah,
which I love talking about health on this podcast, even though it has nothing to do with sports betting. You said you had a health issue that you went through, and could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Just to give some context, I've represented GB and triathlon for the last 3 years I qualified. And last October, my performances weren't working out particularly well, and I started to get a lot of pain in my back. Thought it was down to overtraining and just being old and not overdoing it. Anyway, fast forward to January, and it got really acute, and then I got various things. I got a Thai massage that was stepping on my back to try and fix it, and then I got osteopath who was cracking my back, and eventually I went to a physio, and he went, "I'm not touching you, you need to go and get an MRI as soon as possible." And then I found out that I had a lesion and myeloma cancer in my T2 vertebra. Fast forward about 4 or 5 weeks, I was taken into hospital, a brace fitted from here to here, and had that on for about 4.5 months, 24/7. So I went from being incredibly active and what I thought to be fit and healthy to then being quite dramatically restricted in what I could do.
And how old were you when you got this diagnosis?
I was 53.
Okay. And so talk me through the emotions a little bit. Did you see your life flash before your eyes? Were you scared? Were you resolved? Like, how did it feel when you first got that diagnosis?
I'm a very logical guy. I'm not a why me, which was my mum's original reaction, which was hilarious, was, "Oh my God, why you're so fit and healthy?" And I had that from quite a few people, but cancer is it's in every single one of us. And I take it very logically that I wasn't massively disrupted by it. I'm quite a positive person as well. And I think we have a lot of areas we can control, and there's some areas we can't, and life throws curveballs at you, and I'm quite straightforward. Once I knew what it was, once I knew the impact of my life, I could then figure out a series of steps that I could then take to deal with that situation. I think it's a lot harder for my wife or my family. I think it's a lot tougher on them because they lack that control. They don't necessarily have all the information that I do, and I think it's more challenging. But I would naturally, the first thing I did was hoover up as much information as possible, talk to as many people as possible, read as many books as I could, just to really understand the situation that I was in.
And is this something you're still dealing with now, or did you go through treatment and things are going better?
I've had 5 weeks of radiation, They call it a curative dose, which is a bit, and this is the other thing, you hear all these hilarious medical terms that aren't true, but curative means that they can deal with the lesion in the place that I've got it, and hopefully that's reducing. And then that should go down over time after the amount of radiation that I've had. And then the next step would be, if it hasn't gone, then I would go into chemo towards the end of this year. So I'm still in that kind of transitional state of, has it worked, hasn't it worked? But I've got this for the rest of my life. And it will be like bat the rat, really. It's going to keep popping up. I don't know where, I don't know when, but I've got it till I die.
A bit like prostate cancer. Is that similar in the sense that you just manage it and you never get rid of it once you get prostate cancer?
I've not really done much research on prostate, so I don't really know. I know a lot of people can get it removed, but no, I've got a blood-based cancer that I've got forever. So.
And I've been reading in the papers that people are getting cancer younger and younger. In your research, did you try to think of, was I exposed to environmental things? Do you think it's bad luck? Do you think it's my exposure to this chemical or that chemical that may have gotten you cancer at 53? Or have you thought about that?
Oh God, you often think, where and how can I have got it? And I think that's a very natural reaction and emotions of people. But for me personally, I had an overactive thyroid when I was younger, and that definitely, I had a radioactive treatment for that around the throat area. So you naturally go, oh, was that the thing that caused it? Or is it hereditary? Whereas actually only very few cancers are hereditary. Less than 5% of cases are actually genetic, which I thought was really interesting. But no, the younger piece, I think it's more down to diet. So one of the things that I'm pretty passionate about now is thinking how we can get more nutritionalists into the system, into the NHS, to help and support people really understand the benefit of a great diet, eating the right foods, reducing their ultra-processed foods, and then taking more control of their health. Because all of the major diseases, especially in the UK and probably in the US as well, I think is stimulated, if not accelerated, by diet. One of the key things that I'm going to do over the next few years is raise as much money as I can to be able to help and support nutrition to become a mainstream part of treatment, and education, both as a preventative, but also as a part of treating cancer.
That's great. One of the books I read about a year ago is a book called Outlive by Peter Attia. I don't know if you've come across it.
I've just started his podcast, The Drive, right?
It's amazing. He's changed my life.
All right, cool.
Well, and my dad's a doctor, and I've always thought I was reasonably educated on general health. And your whole lives, you hear this thing, exercise and eat well, exercise and eat well.
Yeah.
And, it's not like I haven't heard that I'm 43, so I've been hearing that for 42 and a half years. But until I read that book, I really didn't understand anything about nutrition. He talks about the macronutrients, which you have carbohydrates, alcohol, protein, fats, what quantities you need those things in. He talks a lot about diabetes and why that gets you in such a negative cycle in your body.
Yep.
And I've heard about diabetes my whole life, and I always thought diabetes was something like you need a candy bar and insulin and you're fine. I didn't realize how type 2 diabetes can really just destroy your life and how it happens when you're out of whack. And I consider myself somewhat educated, someone who cares about health in generic sense. And before I read this book, I didn't know anything. And now that I have a little bit of knowledge, I realize nobody knows anything about nutrition. You were saying you're passionate about nutrition. How do you think society should handle that?
I think
it's a big climb.
Where to start on that? I think education is crucial. I think I reference it relative to cancer, really. There's still almost a denial in a lot of the duty of care policies that both the NHS and a lot of cancer treatments in the US would have. A lot of lack of appreciation for the effect of diet on the ability to either prevent or treat cancer. And I think that raising awareness for that is crucial to the long-term health of society, whether it's reducing the amount of ultra-processed foods that people are consuming on a regular basis, which is just endemically part of our society and what we do and the culture, or whether it's to really promote more vegetables, more fruit, a more healthy use that people can consume. But more importantly, make them more available at cheaper cost, at cheaper price, and really support people to understand the true benefits.
Peter talks about in the book how bad sugar is for you, and the body does not need sugar whatsoever. And he also linked it to cancer in the sense that cancer, I don't know if your specific cancer is the same, but cancer, generally speaking, is a glucose-hungry disease, because for the cells to reproduce, they need a lot of glucose. So have you modified your diet to decrease the amount of sugar in your diet?
Yeah, I think I would say that's something I was already quite acutely aware of as an athlete, that I was looking for more sustainable energy sources, especially as a triathlete. And I think that reducing sugar and then looking at how you can improve fat burning to support endurance sports was always a kind of key part of my psyche. But I wouldn't say that I made any dramatic changes until more recently, where I've definitely increased the amount of vegetables and fruit and nuts that I eat. I've increased the fat content in my diet, which is kind of good and bad. You have to moderate that to a certain degree. But I would say I eat a lot more balanced diet, a lot more healthy, and a lot less processed food. So I focus on removing as much as possible two things, both sugar and then ultra-processed meals as much as needed. That link of cancer and sugar is a dangerous one, because I've read lots of research papers that to a certain degree recommend a ketogenic diet, for example, which helps your body become a lot more fat burning. But I think you've got to be really careful with the evidence that's being supported to say that sugar is the evil and cancers feed on sugar. That's not quite the case, because cancers can use various different ways of succeeding, should we say. And I think you shouldn't just look at it through the one-dimensional view of sugar.
Thanks for sharing that. It's brave of you to talk about it on a podcast about your cancer journey. And I know it's something a lot of people go through, and I imagine it's difficult to talk about, but I appreciate you opening up about that.
No worries. No, it's good. I'm always open to doing so, yeah.
So let's segue to gambling, which is cancer and gambling. There's a I was on a podcast yesterday, and somebody asked me what I wanted to get out of G2E. And being from the UK, even though I'm American, I said vitamin D is what I was looking for. So what are you trying to get out of this conference?
I like that. I might steal that. If I get asked that in any of the panels and stuff, I'm going to say the same thing, because we're fairly deficient on that in general. No, I think for me, we obviously have quite a reasonable presence in the US, and it's a big focus for us. We do it through our own brands and then also through third-party partnerships that we operate. But for me, it's learning. I was only arrived yesterday lunchtime. I've had some brilliant meetings already. I hate conferences in general. I'm announcing that on a podcast, sitting in a conference, but in general, I have a real allergic reaction to them. But I love one-to-one conversations with people who are trying to solve similar problems, and get an opportunity to kind of chat through stuff has been really interesting.
Cool. So I know OddsChecker for years now. I think I first learned about OddsChecker when they were independent, and then I think Sky bought them.
Yeah.
And then when Paddy Power of Betfair, I think, bought Sky Bet, then they became the owner of OddsChecker. And then I think you are Fairplay Sports Media. It's part of a private equity company that bought it from Flutter.
That's right. 3 years
ago. Right?
About three and a bit years ago, yeah.
Has anything changed besides ownership, or is it still the same vibe of let's do odds comparison, let's monetize through sending new customers to bookmakers?
Firstly, a lot has changed. And secondly, I think that's what you've just said is probably one of the most common misnomers or misunderstandings about what OddsChecker really did. So it's really important to go back to the beginning, really, which is when OddsChecker was part of Sky Bet or part of Flutter, it was allowed to build some really cool technology. And I know you're from a technology background as well. So when I looked at it a few years ago, they'd built a transactional system to be able to deploy odds at a low latency, high scale, globally across multiple markets with hundreds of millions of transactions a day and hundreds of thousands of transactions a second to be able to power an odds comparison site. And I got really excited by that, because the user case for that kind of transactional platform and that data capability and the tech team that OddsChecker had was way beyond how we were using it on a OddsChecker brand which advertised odds to consumers paid for by advertising. So for me, it was a bit Pandora's box of how can I take that technology, that approach, and that bet tech, we'd call it, and then be able to take it into different user cases, different business models, and into different territories, and really take that core platform capability and intellectual property and think, what can we do with it? And for me, that was hugely exciting to go and have a bit of a play.
So what's my misconception, that you have all this tech that you're not using, or?
No, it's more that how we make money. So we make money from advertising. We do make money from affiliate, which is the acquisition piece, but that's a relatively small amount of our business. And then we also make money from transactions, subscriptions, and we also make money from licensing some of our technology to third parties as well. So we have quite a broad range of business models that we operate through. And affiliate, the acquisition piece, is relatively small. And so our job is to retain, reactivate, and engage and stimulate consumers but also by the same token work on their behalf to give them the fairest opportunity to understand the market, understand where the value is, and to give them as much help in making decisions as possible.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think OddsChecker it's a decently old business. I want to say it was founded 15, 20 years ago?
25.
Okay.
Yeah, 25.
And I'm being hyperbolic to get elicited
cool.
response,
Yeah.
but for being early, I guess you might call it, in the sort of betting analytics, it seems to have not been usurped, but there's a whole crop of, like, let's call professional betting tools. The ones that are coming to mind are like OddsJam and Unabated and, all these periphery
Outlier.
things. Outlier, and then there's another suite of odds comparison tools, OddsShark, Easy Odds, and I think at least in the UK, as far as I understand, you're still number one odds comparison. But I've never seen OddsChecker do anything in the analytics space. You talk about all this capability of having all this super fast data. Have you done anything with it? Do you sell your odds feed? Have you built betting tools for the end consumer?
Yeah. So we did a really cool acquisition earlier this year. We bought a company called Quarter4. And Quarter4 is a deep learning neural network that...
Sounds fancy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's that AI thing. So we can now stick AI in everything. We're great, right?
Is it OddsChecker.ai?
AI and data, yeah. We tick those boxes. But
That's great. 10x evaluation.
Yeah, we'll see.
Job done.
But no, what I was really, to your point, we had huge amounts of behavioral data. We had huge amounts of odds data going back many years, but we weren't really in the predictions market at enough scale. So we bought Q4 that was really gearing up to be a trading pricing tool for operators. And we bought it so we could put that in the hands of consumers. And the logic being that if we really want to empower consumers, and with the cost of computing coming down, there's a real opportunity to use AI really effectively to level that playing field and give consumers the tools that they're looking for. OddsJam and some of those others absolutely have a place in doing a really nice job in engaging consumers. But I think with our technology, our data, and our behavioral data, and particularly married with the predictions of the odds, gives us quite a unique position to create some really meaningful consumer tools as well that we will charge for on a subscription.
So if you take like the OddsJams of the world and the OddsCheckers of the world, what do you think that they can, what niche, what lane are they in and what lane are you in? Because to me, it feels all it's sort of the same lane.
No, I don't disagree. I think they're doing a really nice job on almost like a cult of engaging consumers and teaching them where the value is in the market. And especially in the US where it's growing really fast, I think they do a really nice job on helping people find the value. We do the same thing, except at a bigger scale. We operate across globally, and our consumer reach and base is a lot bigger in terms of who we can access. And then our tools will slowly be able to be utilized both on our own brands or through media partnerships or on the networks.
So if we take this AI buzzword that sounds pretty nice, what are some specific applications of AI do you think that you'll be able to do that is great for the industry?
For example, we launched Bet Builder in the UK that allows consumers to be able, and I think we were the first to market for that in the UK, to allow people to look at accumulators or parlays and see who has the best odds.
Okay.
So you build your bet.
That's not AI related though, right?
Not yet, but
Okay.
let me comment of how that's table stakes, right? So we can do that and we can show who has the best odds for the bet builder that you want to be able to then build. If you layer on top of that the predictions, so we can then use real-time predictions to then analyze where the market is relative to where we think the market should be for that particular set of decisions. And because it's a deep learning neural network, if at the last minute Pep Guardiola takes off Haaland, then we can the AI that we've got can automatically adjust all the predictions in real time and show the consumer that value of how the odds have changed between the operators, but more importantly, how the prediction marries against that. So we can provide them with real-time, low latency information and data to help them truly understand the current bet that they're trying to place. So it's not free game, it's in-game, and it's live.
Okay, so if I understood that correctly, you're saying you would use an AI to have a predictive model for what the value is and then show that to the user to show the price relative to what bookmaker X is quoting.
Yeah, and we can do that both for a single bet, we can do that for a multi as well.
So
Live is the important piece because a lot of classic AI allows you to do it tree game, but if anything changes, like the formation or a substitution or an injury or inclement weather comes in like a storm, those models will have to rerun, and there's a latency to doing that. The benefit of our AI is that we can do it low latency, high speed, that can adjust immediately to all of these things.
So my jam is price.
Yep.
Like that's my religion in sports betting. And
Yep.
people are getting ripped off is my hypothesis. People are getting fucked is the French way I would say it. And
Very French.
And bet builders, like the margin in these products is 20, 30, 40, 50%. And so like, let's say your algorithm is correct. Are you going to be building in a margin to not embarrass the bookmaker? Because these bookmakers are the ones who pay you, right? So if you are showing bet builder A from Bet365, are you going to tell the user that you're going to be paying a 40% margin when you're betting on this product?
But don't forget, we have consumers paying us money as well.
Okay.
So we have subscription services where they can unlock that. And the consumer is paying to get a service where we provide ultimate transparency as much as we possibly can. And that's
that's in conflict with the bookmaker, because if I take a step back, I think one of the big reasons people get so screwed or fucked in French is that it's really hard to do odds comparison. You're working on that problem, and people don't understand probability. If somebody says there's a 20% chance or a 30% chance, the human brain's like, oh, that's about the same, right?
Yeah.
But in a probabilistic manner, there's a world of difference between 20 and 30%.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I assume the biggest portion of your revenue is coming from the bookmakers, not the consumers.
The biggest portion comes from advertising at the moment, you're right. But
Bookmakers are advertising.
yeah, bookmakers are advertising, yeah.
So
and other advertisers.
They make
have.
money just like in casinos by charging 30% margin on a bet builder. So I'm just wondering, like, do you see a potential conflict there, or do you think
No.
it'll work?
No, because we operate a media network that in some cases is working on behalf of the consumer and providing that level of transparency. And in some cases is working on behalf of the operator because it's an advertising paid business model that we utilize to present that information and data. And I think what we're really saying is, how do we provide enough transparency to give consumers confidence that we're not trying to rip them off because the operator is paying us to do so, which is why I was really passionate about launching consumer-first services and a more consumer-centric user experience to allow them to get access to that data and level the playing field and fair play, allowing people to get more access to data.
Don't foul.
Yeah.
Don't foul, kids.
And I'm from an engineering maths background, so that's something I'm pretty passionate about, that leveling the playing field through arming people with data and technology.
Do you share that perspective that if you are from a math background, and I don't know how much you get into the weeds about what bookmakers end up charging people, but the average margin in a sports bet is 10%. Like, to me, it's crazy. That's why I'm in this industry, because I looked at that and I was like, who pays that? Who pays 10%? Then I realized everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody pays 10% every time they place a bet. It blows my mind. Think of all the things you do. If you pay 10% sales tax, you're like, that's expensive. Or you buy a house, it's 6% to the real estate agent.
It depends what lens you're looking at it through, because if you're
give me a soft lens.
If you're looking at it through a lens of, as a consumer, are you happy to pay a 10% charge for an entertainment that you're looking forward to?
Well, why can't they have the entertainment for 2% margin?
Maybe they could, but that's not the market that they're in. But with markets more than most, that offering exchanges can also alleviate give consumers the transparency that perhaps they're looking for.
Yeah.
I think you're asking a lot of, do I believe?
Philosophically, how do you feel about it?
Philosophically,
how do you feel about?
I think as long as there's choice and consumers have transparency, I think they're going to make that. As long as we can empower them as much as we possibly can through opportunities to have a fairer system that has more transparency, and we level that playing field more, I feel very comfortable about it. Because then they're going to vote with their bets, with their relationships, with everything else.
My opinion on it is, we were talking about diet before, right? People eat like shit. It's no question. And I'm the first to throw my hand up. I grew up on fast food. I love fast food. I had Chick-fil-A a few days ago. That's horrible for you. But one of the best ways, I think, to help consumers is, rather than saying, in New York, they were 20 years ago or something, Bloomberg wanted to pass this thing where you can't sell soda over a certain size. Rather than like restricting what a consumer can buy, I think a great sort of middle ground is saying how many calories something is, right? And one of the things that doesn't exist in sports betting, which we should do, and probably I would suggest you should do, is like the house edge, the vig, the margin, whatever you want to call it, is published. So you're talking about, you think it's fair if consumers have choice, but I don't think consumers really know that they're paying 10%.
Well, I think if you look at what I said earlier, the company we bought purposefully in January to help support that kind of approach and proposition was exactly because of that. I wanted to provide transparency on what machines that we have that have a rich data set to power them think that the price should be relative to the bet, and then compare that against the market.
Yeah.
And consumers will then vote, right, with who they then bet with. Based
if
on
it works, it'll destroy the industry, which is what I'm excited about.
I don't think it would destroy it.
If you put
I think there's a place for both.
If you put sports betting at 1% margin, let's say that was the blended margin that you had on the sports bet, the industry would be destroyed.
I don't think that will ever happen.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I can see, but I think it's an interesting angle, but it's an academic debate at the moment. But I do believe that, especially with all of the...
I like to say I'm an artist.
Oh, do you? I like to be a scientist and an artist. I don't like to be pigeonholed as either. I'm kind of like maths and kind of artistic.
Yeah.
I like that.
So zooming out a little bit, a lot of people have the opinion sports bettors are not price sensitive, and you probably are in one of the best places to opine on that. So if a general person comes up to you on the street and says, are sports bettors price sensitive?
100%.
What would you say?
Yeah, 100%. But
100% of sports bettors are price sensitive?
No. Would I answer? I would say they are.
Give me the nuanced take on that.
Well, because we're a price comparison site, so of course all of our data shows that people are price sensitive. Why would you come to OddsChecker if you weren't going to check the odds? And we have an incredible loyal customer base where we see a significant percentage of UK bettors come to our site every single week, every single day, and they're looking for the best price possible. They've got 4 or 5 different operators they can transact through our platform, and we see that they are price sensitive, and price really matters. But I think what's really interesting with the regulatory environment that we're seeing developing in the UK, especially with the white paper, they also look for other things as well. And our job as a network that provides better technology is to also bring to life some of those other things that the operators are investing in that will help or protect the consumers as much as possible, or go down more of an entertainment point of view to give the consumers more information to find value.
So my finger in the air number for price sensitive sports bettors is 10%. That's not based on any data, it's anecdotal. So like, let's say there's 3 million sports bettors in the UK annually, about 300,000 on price sensitive.
No, I would say it's a lot more than that. We would say it's at least, I would say 30 to 40% of the UK
30
market.
to 40%. I'm not trying to promote Smarkets, but why do you think Smarkets hasn't been more successful at 30 to 40% of, because we were on OddsChecker for 2-3 years. We ended up jumping off because it was expensive. You guys charged pretty penny to stay.
You mean we've got huge amounts of value that we offer
Yes,
to our
yes,
advertisers?
Well, what we found was we weren't getting a lot of new signups because a lot of people will sort of come to check the odds, but we were able to do attribution if you come to OddsChecker. Not a lot of people signed up through OddsChecker.
So I think if you go back when you were engaging with us before, we probably didn't have the data, the behavioral data, that would be able to give you any kind of understanding of why that was. A big investment since I've been part of OddsChecker, Fairplay, is to really invest in data and understanding more about the consumer data, so we really understand some of those things that are important to them, whether it's through customer research or whether it's through analytics and the telemetry that we've put on our site to give us better data.
So you would argue 30 to 40% of bettors in the UK are price sensitive?
Yeah, based on our properties, yeah.
That's a huge number, and I think
the thing about your point is, how come they didn't go to Smarkets?
Or
you could say,
whatever.
or any exchange, right?
Yes.
And the point is because it's not as easy to use or as intuitive as logging onto your tried and trusted brand that you've worked, your sportsbook that you've worked with for many years, that has a proven interface that you just click and go, right? So really the challenge is not, are they price sensitive? It's how do you engage, activate them to look for the best value and give them the tools and the journey to be able to do so. And I think that's the industry challenge that we're looking at, is how can we share data to make sure that consumers still continue to find the best value, but also fully appreciate the different operators and what they're good and what they're bad at.
So if I were to put that another way, 30 to 40% of bettors care about price, but the higher priority is brand and experience.
And
say
familiarity,
like
yeah.
Right.
But also, this is why I think the US is really interesting, because in theory, the US, more tech-savvy audience, a more data-centric audience across more multiple sports as opposed to just horse racing and football. So I think in the US, we're going to be able to test and learn a lot more in the US market than we can perhaps in the UK, because the landscape is very different, the bettor is very different, and that gives us the opportunity to try new things.
What's your take on exchanges?
I think we're barely scratching the surface in what we can do with exchanges in general. I'd love to work with them more because of our approach to data and the understanding of consumer behavior. I think it offers a very interesting angle for consumers to have a different experience.
So what would you do further with exchanges in general?
Well, I think this is where if we can bring together behavioral data, odds data, predictions into a really usable, easy to use, easy to digest and understand tool set, then I think some of the exchanges are going to become a lot more mainstream than perhaps they are today. But I see operators almost backing away from that a bit. So I'm confused that because I'm a tech person coming into the industry, exchanges make perfect sense. In fact, I love marketplaces in general. I've spent a lot of my career looking at marketplaces. So exchanges resonate really well with me because it offers demand and supply and it works really nicely. But I can't quite figure out why it's not worked. But I presume predominantly it's kind of user behavior.
Because I'm bad at my job.
No.
My hypothesis is that the interface sucks. It's too confusing.
I agree.
I had this guy who had a PhD in economics from LSE. I showed him my interface and he's like, what is this? I think that's the core problem, is that the interface makes zero sense. And ours included and all the other exchanges kind of have that same blocky buying and selling mechanism.
100% agree. Which is my point earlier, that I think the barrier to people consuming is not, I don't care about price or finding the best value. It's actually the user experience is not adequate or engaging enough to make that transition. And I think the US might offer a lot of hope around that because it's a different type of bettor and a different type of experience.
The early indication, I mean, we had a few of the US-facing exchanges on this platform. One of them is called Profit. The previous episode, they just pivoted to a sweepstakes model. They were live in New Jersey, and then you have Sport Trade. They're expanding to other states, but as far as I can see from the public data, they haven't caught fire. Like, they're still a relatively small operation. So the early data is showing that the exchanges in the US haven't taken hold yet.
Yeah, but we're so early. I think everyone kind of assumes the US, because it's so big already, is more mature than it actually is. And one of the things I talk to both our customers, partners, and internally about is we're so early in the US. The good news is I love the data tech approach that I'm seeing really catch fire over here. But by the same token, we're so early. Everyone was so acquisition hungry, using affiliate as the primary business model, not necessarily looking at how to retain and activate. A duopoly, really. It's a stranglehold on the industry, which is kind of not great for the consumer either. So I think we've got a long way to run in the US, and I'm really positive about the long-term kind of industry and environment.
Great. Before I let you go, there's a traditional question I like to ask everybody.
Right.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
What do I want to be when I grow up? I've thought a lot about that, especially of late. A decent human being. That's my North Star, just in all aspects of life. I love my family. I love my daughters, my wife. They're really important to me, but I like to lead a really balanced life. But I just want to be a decent human being.
Great.
It's work in progress.
Well, thank you for stopping by. Thank you very much for sharing your personal story with your health journey that you're on. And I wish you the best of luck.
No worries. Good. Thanks.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 US operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.